All right, that's on them. So, welcome to the Azure Group. If you're here for something else, I'm sorry, it's not the place for you. If you're here for Azure, welcome. October, in case anyone was wondering. So, welcome to October. Welcome to Azure. Before we get underway, we're going to say a big thank you out to our sponsors. So, without these guys, this would not be possible. So, thank you very much, sponsors. So, Notify and Microsoft, thank you very much. And we'll get underway. So getting involved is really important. It's a full list at the moment, but we do have next year. So as long as the world doesn't fall apart within the next couple of months, we're fine to go for next year. And if you've got something interesting to say, we would love to hear it. So let us know if you've got something. It doesn't have to be a full episode. It can just be a small thing. We can put a bunch of people together. We do have December. We're looking forward to that one. We've got a couple of people put together. That's great. The more people talking, the more about the community getting involved, the better. It doesn't have to be about new stuff. It can be about old and boring stuff. It can, hopefully not boring, but old stuff. It can be about your experiences. What are you doing in Azure? You know, it doesn't have to be, ideally Azure, you know, it does have to kind of be Azure, but it doesn't have to be new. So what are you doing? Let us know. We'd love to hear from it. Got a wonderful talk lined up today. All right, so got our email there. If you want to get involved, drop us a line. Love to hear from it. So I've kind of added a new feature in because this month got crazy. There is so much going on. And I'm not going to read through all of these individually. If you see something that you go, hey, that's probably something I'm using, like I've got all the links here so you can take note, look into it. But be aware there's a lot of stuff getting retired, and there's a big schedule running out to 2026. So, you know, speech, Cosmos DB, built-in Jupyter, log analytics-based VM insights, Redis, we've got TLS. You've got Azure Sphere Classic. You've got Azure Communication Services. And I haven't used that one. Azure Machine Learning, Explanation and Fairness Dashboards, HTTP Application Routing, I didn't miss one, Preview for AKS. You've got Default Outbound Access for VMs. I know some people here are super keen on that one to bite the dust, which they are. Azure AI Document Intelligence, and Azure Maps Render V1. Keeps going. APIs. We got Azure Activity Logs, and we got some Azure Service Bus SDK libraries. There's actually a whole bunch more SDK libraries. I just got sick of putting them in the slides. I'm sorry. It's just, you can blame me. There's a lot of SDKs that are getting axed. Check it out anyway. So now to the cool stuff, the cool updates. We've got Cosmos DB custom endpoints. So this is like when you want to connect your Cosmos DB into IoT Hub. You've got these custom routing endpoints. They're coming along. Definitely some interest in that. We see some photographs. We got Azure App Service Virtual Network Backup and Restore. That one's also coming along. So it's, you know, if you've got one of those app service environments, you're in luck. Or if you've got virtual network attached app service, also applicable. Artifact cache registry, container registry has just gone GA. So that's just caching those images, gives you faster retrieval of those images. There's a whole bunch that it's applicable to. You've got Azure Function extensions for Dapper. I know Todd hasn't been here for a while, but Todd's a massive Dapper fan. And it's not the SQL Server Dapper, in case anyone's interested. It's the other Dapper. But we've now got Azure Functions Runtime integration for Dapper. So that's pretty cool. So Dapper's getting along pretty well. That's all your sidecars and your Kubernetes stuff, and just makes things programming-wise a little bit simpler. Azure Communications Services Job Router. So this is coming into preview. So it's about routing out to those different workloads. Is that the right word? Sorry. From communication services, so you can just branch it out. We've got a new free version of SQL, which is pretty cool, but there's some constraints. It's not constraint free, but there is a free option for SQL now. It's only one per subscription. Yeah, you could probably create a bunch of subscriptions, but you know, it's a good sort of starter path if you want to start onboarding SQL and minimize your costs as you're sort of embedding that capability. You've got Logic App to Azure Monitor Logs connector. And it's now managed identity. So managed identities, if you're not, so who's not heard of managed identity? Everyone's heard of it, that's great. No one's heard of it, okay. So managed identity is a way to connect things in Azure if you can. Some things are really good, some things not so much. You kind of have to play with it to find out whether it's going to be right for you. But wherever you can and wherever it makes sense, and you need to make sure it makes sense for all of your infrastructure as code, managed identity is the way to go. I couldn't recommend them enough. They're really good. So they'll remove the need for those username passwords, those secrets. You know, it just establishes that security layer for you. Malware scanning is now Azure file share, I believe, storage. Now has malware scanning that you can activate from Defender. So it gives you a bit of peace of mind in your file storage. And lastly, but not least, I'm sure lots of people have heard about Playwright. It's sort of pretty big. It's taken, you know, lots of people in the industry adopting Playwright for testing. It's a great capability. Well, now Playwright testing is an Azure-backed Playwright service that allows you to spin up Playwright tests in parallel. So you can get that high load-ish, you know, testing volume. More about testing multiple tests independently so you can execute your tests in parallel and get your test results quicker. That was a bit of a whirlwind. So the reason I'm sure this was so annoying this month, and there was so many things, and I apologize because I didn't do everything. I dropped a whole bunch of stuff that I went, yeah, I'm not interested in that part of Azure, sorry. Maybe really cool to lots of people, but not me. Oh wait, APIM, sorry. Case in point, APIM, but I am interested in APIM. So it came out today, really cool. Dan knows a lot more about it than I do.
Just that there's a new version 2 of standard edition of APIM, which supports VNet integration. Now you might say, well, that's always been just a premium feature of it. But however, the VNet integration still isn't quite the same as it is in premium. In premium, you can actually inject your APIM into your virtual network, which means that you completely close it off from public access. With the standard V2, as I understand it, it still has a public address to it, but you can connect your backend to all the virtual stuff that's inside your virtual network securely. That's how I think. I only did like a 30-second read of the document.
Very new, very new. So if you're interested in APIM, check that out too. So that's pretty cool. And so there may be something coming up like next month, maybe. So that might be it. So Ignite's coming. So that's something to keep your eyes on. Yeah, next month. So that's pretty cool. Oh, take a photo. There's lots of advertising about that, so you'll probably see that. We got Yao Brisbane. This is a photo bomb opportunity, I think. Let's go here. Just Yao conference. All right. DDD is coming up in December, so it's a bit further out, but we need to get your tickets early. Alrighty, some resources. We got our Slack team, our YouTube channel, and some courses that we look at. There's a couple of blogs that are pretty cool. And tonight, without any further ado, I think we're having pizza. Is that right, Tina? Well, so after the pizza, well, I don't know. Possibly before the rate this is gone. We have Tina. So Tina's a passionate technologist who's been working in the industry for 20 years.
Not everyone, I'm old.
Oh, I take that all back. Tina's super young, passionate. So tonight we're going to hear about Semantic Kernel.
Yes,
Super excited to hear about that. Over to you, or do we break?
Are they here yet?
What's the time?
You're not here just yet, but we're expecting them momentarily. So did you?
I can.
6:24.
I can do
We can swap over.
many things.
Yes.
Including.
If you want to use
A dance?
No, that would be boring.
You're on the spot, Bernie.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is stop the
I
share.
don't have micro use.
Not for the mouse clicker, no.
No.
That's right. But we do have the connection.
He's not online. We got wireless charging nowadays. Well, you spend many things if you're using a mouse. You're using it on a table.
It works.
We don't want it. They probably want to see the laser online, but they can see it here.
That's okay.
Oh.
Like, no, they can't see it. I mean,
Awesome. I was just, I didn't want to move the slide.
Stop phasing out. We're going to switch to light phase.
I'm not in a not sharing on the meeting yet. Is it showing up in the meeting? Oh, that's good. That's a room thing then.
Feature a team.
I'm happy to start. Feel free to stop me anytime. Awesome. Hey everyone, thanks for having me. What are you guys doing today? Can we have it just one? Oh, that's okay. Can we have a little bit of a vote in terms of like who's working in an enterprise, who's working in government, who's doing some small business stuff? Can everyone who works for Queensland or federal or any government in Australia raise your hands? Cool. Enterprise, large enterprise. Thank you. And who works in for yourself or a small company? Cool. This is almost the biggest group. That's incredible. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming here. I work for a very, very small company, like almost a micro company. I started this in the start of this year, and I've been working in this technology as a part of my company, as a part of the product that we're developing. So I think about 6 to 8 months ago, I had my first talk here, and we talked about OpenAI, the way it just came about. It came out, and how we were using it in a very immature way at that time, and just it's an API. Let's just call it, see what comes out, and do with it. And since then, like no other technology, the way it's moved is being so rapid, so fast, and so amazing. That now the way we do it, do the same thing, or maybe more things to do with that, is using this SDK, which is called Semantic Kernel. Some of you may already know that it's an SDK, some may not, and we'll get there. But the good thing is that it is the leading leading, I can call it a product, but it's not quite a product because it's an open source SDK that is available for anyone to use. But it is definitely a leading way of going about doing Gen AI development in your organization if you are in the Microsoft stack. There are many other competing ones in the non-Microsoft stack, but this is definitely in the Microsoft stack. Actually, I should have asked who here is. All right, I can just go forward a bit. I think I've done this. So a little bit about the product that we are developing. I took on a very interesting challenge of helping people how to communicate better. As if just communicating myself wasn't a challenge enough. But it's with a focus of helping people who find it hard to communicate sometimes. I'll take. Sorry, we're not taking your. Not putting spotlight on you, but almost on me as well. When I walked in here, as amazing as it was to see everyone, I didn't have the guts to just go into any of the groups and just say hello. The first thing that hit me was, oh my God, this is really just a room full of guys. And we don't understand sometimes if you're not in the minority group. That could be women, that could be anyone. And when that happens over and over again in workplace where we can't just stand on the side of the room or just go in another room and we have to work together, it becomes hard sometimes. And the attempt or the goal of my product or our organization is to just help organization help those people so everyone can contribute and they can actually have a better organization culture and better environment, better productivity, and almost everyone can have a good experience. This is interesting. This is from my last presentation, so we'll just go past this one. Who here has not heard of OpenAI? Azure OpenAI. Great. Azure OpenAI is OpenAI available in Azure. And the reason it is something different to think about is as Dan was mentioning about the VNets and things like that, we are all working in our organization context. And as amazing as it was for OpenAI and ChatGPT to come and everyone just jumping on it, it has always been, or for a while, it was a question mark how organizations can benefit from it. Like, this is so incredible, but what can I do for my company, for our productivity, how can I benefit as an organization, or how can my organization benefit from it? If you are thinking of doing something around it now, and you again are on the Microsoft stack, there is a cognitive service. OpenAI is available now inside Azure as a cognitive service, just like any other cognitive services, the way they've planned it, designed it, and delivered it. And what it does is allows you to have your own instance of OpenAI. And since last few weeks or so ago, now they have it in Australia as well. So there is an OpenAI instance in Azure in Australia, which is called Azure OpenAI. And the claim is that it does not even learn from your data. So Microsoft's statement or view of the world on this is that even though it's an instance that is separated from the rest of the world or the rest of the OpenAI, and it's only being used for your business, for your purpose, it's not even being used to your data that you're asking, chatting, questioning, is not even being used to train that instance in itself. So that's quite a good claim, and could really help some organizations, because sometimes you may build this isolated, dedicated environment application, but you still can't handhold everyone. You could do some things, put some things in here that you haven't catered for, or you haven't really put rules around it, and then there's just this benefit that you can use. I'm guessing everyone has heard of Microsoft 365 Copilot. Not even a single hand. That's awesome. who has not heard of Semantic Kernel?
That's why we're here.
I've heard of it. So there are a few hands. Well, there were a few hands that didn't go up. So can I please have hands or someone share their thoughts in terms of if you've seen it, used it, or heard about it? What you think of it?
I have heard of cognitive search, semantic search, Azure cognitive search, but semantic kernel, I don't understand the difference or what is the relation.
They probably use pick the name from there. That's a good correlation. Cool. So I guess we can have a look at what it is. Seems like pizzas are coming, so let's quickly have a look at that. So as I mentioned at the starting, it's an SDK. It's an open source SDK. Microsoft. The reason I asked you if you know about Microsoft 365 Copilot is it's built on it. And that's why it is the leading SDK or leading framework or pattern to build applications around OpenAI, or for that matter, any LLM. Because, again, it's a claim. We'll see when that happens. But Microsoft's claim is they will incorporate all leading LLMs into it. So right now, it already has connectors built in for OpenAI, the public OpenAI, as well as the Azure OpenAI. But it's actually, they're saying that they'll include others. And you have an option of including others too. If you don't want to wait for Microsoft to release or come up to that, it's an open source thing. You can contribute back into it. Or if you just want it for your project, you can just build a connector to any other LLM that you want to use as well. It's available in C# and Python. Mix and match is a good point, because since we started talking about OpenAI or LLMs, we talk about scenarios which are only about AI, are only about large language model type kind of applications, asking questions, getting answered. But that's not how the business or end-to-end products or solutions work. There's simple things there too, simple things as saving a file, or simple things as sending an email. Simple things put together make complex or enterprise applications. So that's very big strength of Semantic Kernel, that it allows you to just with that much ease incorporate other non-OpenAI, non-LLM components as well. A lot of them, again, in the Microsoft ecosystem, are built-in connectors. So if you want to save an email, if you want to send an email, if you want to look up some information, anything from the Microsoft stack, the connectors, a lot of connectors are built in. Is there anything exciting you'd like to share?
Oh no, sorry. Just a message from a colleague.
Oh, we can hear it if it's funny.
It's not. I wish I was.
We don't want to hear non-funny. So that's where the beauty or the benefit is, and you can start very small, but you can extend into almost anything you want to. We already shared that, and going in on that in a little bit of more of an example. So in this example, we're talking about a marketing campaign. A marketing campaign can take a lot of things. It has a goal. It has a few things that you do. You collect some information. You collect some context that you wanted to go to. You want to do some things when it comes back in terms of, this person responded, this person didn't respond. After a certain period, you might want to do a follow-up. All that kind of things you could do within a one command. So if you have a semantic kernel, which is a LLM-based product as well and has connectors, you could really just say, go do this for me. And that go do this for me could do all the subtasks that are included in it. The way it does it is when you first make a command, it creates a plan. So the statement here that says, please create a series of tasks to complete a marketing project. Once you're done, please summarize them and send them to my team. That is your prompt inside many other instructions. But that's basically the task that you're giving it as one task. But then Semantic Kernel breaks it down. It goes, okay, first of all, what do we need to do? We need to get some context that we want to send it to. So it goes in, does that subtask, gets the context. That could be from your CRM, or from your M365 product or any of the line of business applications, and then it will come and create a plan to do all of those things. And that plan might need some LLM input, like go and create a nice content for the LLM, for the marketing campaign. We want to send a beautiful HTML. It should have our product information. It should have the latest campaign information. Go create that content. But apart from that content that goes into our recipients, everything else is just reading information, writing information. But we still need to do all these actions, and we need to remember that information. So when an email goes to a contact in the marketing campaign, that needs to have a contact from a non-LLM source, and it needs to have the content of the email that goes out as well. Does that confuse or maybe non-confuse? I felt like I confused everyone more than non-confusing.
I just like the fact that you've actually sort of broken down the actual mechanics of doing the task and what functions are actually doing. Sort of was one of my thoughts.
I know this is very high level.
Yep.
On the website at Semantic Kernel, it talks about a number of connectors you can do. Are there, what sort of integration can we look at rather
So
than
Graph API is one of those pre-built connectors that we talked about. So there's a lot of non-LLM pre-built connectors that you come with. So Graph APIs is the Microsoft Graph APIs that you can use to almost perform any action in their M365 platform,
Yep.
which means sending emails, reading emails, all that kind of information. So one of the demos that we've been seeing with M365 Copilot is I go start my day and I say, what should I do today? And that what should I do today question will go and read all my emails. And based on that, give me a summary of this is how your day should be. And this is what you need to go read for these meetings, that meeting. So all of that happens by giving that your access and then picking up your emails on your behalf and then planning it automatically for you. So that's the Graph API connector. Semantic function is, they call the semantic for all the OpenAI or LLM connectors. And then you can create your own as well. So the native part is creating your own. And we can talk more about it after our pizzas. I do have, because we knew we were going to have this break, I have that's very wrong. Where did we go? If you are grabbing your pizza or if you're online, not getting a pizza, please, we really appreciate it if you could fill in a couple of questions. Promise it's only a couple of questions. But yeah, feel free to have pizza and we'll reconvene after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did everyone get a chance to respond?
Seven did. Pizza called.
That's amazing. We have 7 responses. Let's view the results.
Yeah, I was up there. He asked me to sign in, and I thought I've got to go through Azure multi-factor, and it's just like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my God, I can't even
That was a problem. We didn't open it up. Sorry for that. Feel free to try again if you like. It's only a couple of questions, but we'll leave it for another couple of minutes.
When does that edge? Yeah, don't use the edge.
Yeah, it should work without authentication. But I didn't set it up before. I completely forgot about it.
I don't have my inside credentials saved.
Once a work account, I give up.
Action request.
Not a problem. Let's move into the responses. Okay. Now we have 8. So how do you plan to use Semantic Kernel? We have 9, 11. Wow. Okay. That's not too bad. I should have left it for another minute. Awesome. Build an app for work. That's awesome. Build solutions for testing. And I do not plan to use it. Cool. And what would you like to see? That's interesting. I haven't seen the response this way, but it seems like latest responses are AI solutions, more sessions on integration. You're doing a good job. Thank you. Session on integration, details on this, but most importantly, examples. People want to see examples here. So we can definitely do an example. Long chain or prompt flow. I won't be doing long chain, but I'm sure what's the name?
Oh, right.
Rob from Insights can definitely do in long chain one sometime. Cool, awesome. Thank you so much for the responses. That's amazing. Let's see if we can move to back. Even actually, we could have stayed on that because what I want to show you is how easy it is to get to what I was showing you guys. Not GitHub yet, but if you literally just search for Semantic Kernel in any of your search engines, the first page that you see is the Microsoft overview page. And the diagram that I was showing you guys before, so that's where it talks about building co-pilots and things like that, using it too. If you go down on this, you can see this diagram. So this is pretty much what we were looking at. We can continue our discussion, but if you like, I can do QR codes here, right? Okay. Feel free to scan this as well if anyone wants to scan to get to this page, or we can copy and put it in with the link in the chat as well.
So, quick question,
Yes, please.
and you may cover this sort of later on, so feel free to say, hang on, wait, I'll get to that later. If you have a transformer generated model, not an LLM, but another transformer generated
You could have
model.
any cognitive service or any on-prem type, wherever you have other services. If you go, I'll bring the slide back because it's slightly bigger. I guess I can make this one bigger. And sorry for this, it's literally gonna feel very bad when I keep clicking slides. This is my easiest way to get back. Okay, so that kind of product or model or any other service would fall under your native function.
Okay. So you can bring it into
Absolutely.
the context.
And the context is both in terms of your other applications, but if it's about information, because a lot of times people just want to use an LLM and provide an enterprise chatbot, but all they need is some additional organizational information. For that, you don't even need to build plugins. Plugins are more needed for the actions. If you want to perform an action like, go create an item in the CRM or do something like that. For just your information side of things, you can just bring it up in memory. And that memory can be done in many kinds of ways. Your memory data source can be any number of types. And you bring that in, and then you can continue to use that as an additional information that your application can make use of in terms of the context.
Thank you.
Cool. We did kind of stop a little bit abruptly on this before. Any questions? Or anything you'd like to talk, share?
Just on the custom like function calls. So if you wanted to have the model produce an action, in your application or whatever you're doing, is that the native function thing that you're referring
Depends
to?
on the function. So if you are like what we do, we work a lot with the M365 scope, which is all accessible through Graph APIs. So that is they're not still covered every function. There's many that are not covered, but they're growing, and there's quite a few already there. So basic functions, sending an email, reading an email, sending a Teams message or doing some Power Automate action, those kind of things, that's growing rapidly. So
Let's say you
they
had
are
some
there.
IoT device, some external API that you wanted to call from the model or from semantic.
At this
kernel.
point, I think it will be native function.
Yeah.
But as you've worked in the IoT space, so you know that in the IoT, depending on where you are, you do have the schemas. I forgot the terminology, it's been some time, but there is industry standard schemas. So if you, and I would be surprised if someone hasn't started building some connectors for LLMs in those kind of things to just suck the information from that schema and then be able to put it anywhere. So that there is a real estate schema and I think that covers all kinds of, and that was developed by a university and Microsoft in partnership. If you're interested, I can share that. I can look it up and share. But so if there are industry practices, then I would think that standardization should be okay there too. But yeah, as every time something new starts, it's more, proliferation first before consolidation and standardization. So, which is where this really helps. It does set the scene for standardization as much as possible.
Yeah, so I think in terms of native function, basically use native function anytime you want to write code, right? So if you want to write C# code or Python code, then native function is your div, right? For your semantic function, then that's really you're going to build a prompt that you're going to send to some model, right? And then there's a third one which is relatively new. I think is in the latest beta. It was actually is more of a REST API function. So if you want to call a REST API, then that's something that you don't have to write code now for. It's something that you can actually just configure a JSON file and say, here's my endpoint, here's some details, away you go.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. And I guess this is what we were talking before, how easy it is to develop the plugins as well. So there is standardization in how you go about developing. So API manifest is the mandatory part. So if you want to configure something, there will be two things that will be the bare minimum. That would be the API that you're connecting to call whichever function of an API, which could be native, which could be any other models, and then manifest in terms of what information, what you need to do. Adaptive card is an interesting one that is only needed if you want to use a JSON-based adaptive card. And again, it comes in the Microsoft schema. Any interactive cards that come in your emails or your Teams, they're all adaptive cards. And a lot of Microsoft development is going that way. And moving forward, if you want to build an extension into Microsoft 365 Copilot, then also you need the adaptive card. Cool, thanks, Mike. Yes, so adaptive cards are quite easy to develop. They are basically JSON, and they, if you haven't used them, they automatically align with whichever delivery they have. So if they're going in a mobile versus an email versus a Teams client, they automatically style themselves. But then you have a data schema file that goes behind it that can help you bring things into it. I think we talked about this a bit too. So even when you have enterprise, you can use the same pattern. You can literally just build it as an enterprise chat, and you don't have to think any further in terms of how to presented, or you can build an app in Teams like a chatbot. So if you were doing it as a chatbot in Teams, for example, which is how the enterprise chat feature of Copilot is. So one of the biggest and the new, most early feature that's coming in the Copilot is the enterprise chat, and that is delivered as a chatbot in Teams. And to do that, you would do almost everything that you would do to build a chatbot. You wouldn't do anything, non-different, but all you would do now is for your LLM information or non-LLM information, and bringing all of that together into one set of tasks or like a plan that automatically executes, you'll use Semantic Kernel. So if you are using, say, a bot service, you still use bot service. As we saw, and we'll probably see as well, these are just some of the screenshots from what we were just talking about. So that's the Copilot. Just put light on it. Yeah. There you go. This is the chatbot we were talking about. This is your M365 chatbot Copilot, and anything that you do in your normal chat or OpenAI chat, you can do it in this as a chatbot, and then but you would, depending on whichever additional applications and information you need, you will have other plugins as well. So Microsoft, I don't know if I have this in the slides. Microsoft will automatically have all the messaging extensions that you've built. So if you are developing an M365 or Microsoft ecosystem and you have built messaging extensions for your applications, they will automatically get plugged into Copilot. So if you're thinking about developing something new, think about developing it as a messaging extension that will automatically come in here. And that's the adaptive card thing. So if your application requires it, you can obviously use that as the place for receiving information, input from the user, and showing some information. So just some more examples. Okay, cool. Let's do a demo. Any questions while I'm bringing my Visual Studio up? No questions? Let's go. Can everyone see the screen okay? Is it visible, readable? Make it a little bit bigger. I did start it a while ago, so if it's not working, we might have to just restart. But what I want to show you here is, actually, we'll start from here if that's okay. So that's how a plugin looks like. So it's just like as you would do for any component, you will have you'll create an area in your application which will have the plugin. This is for generating persona. That's why this is where the structure is. The two files I need here is the prompt and the manifest or config. The config looks kind of like this. And what it has is basically the information, the dynamic real-time information that I want to pass into the plugin. And some parameters in terms of the LLM. So what you're seeing at the top there is basically saying, use this much tokens, this much temperature, and things like that. So the benefit that you have here in this way as well is you could have different plugins for different LLMs, and you can have different settings. But even if you're using the same LLM, but you want different settings, you want more, you want it to, who doesn't know about temperature in an LLM or OpenAI? Everyone knows about it. So temperature means how much you can play with it. So if I make it 1, I think, then you zero is nothing, right? Yeah, 0 means don't play with it. just do what you've been told. But and then you can start increasing, and it can generate more innovative responses for what you're allowing. And you can get a lot more if you go towards the higher
So
end.
is one go to fiction, tell me stories, hallucinate.
AGI. What's AGI? Just kidding. I don't know about that.
From my understanding, one, it just allows it to vary between all its potential responses for any one point, and it does go higher than one.
Oh, okay.
From my experiences, you can turn it up, and it keeps going up, and it just steadily becomes less coherent.
There you go. There you go.
Don't go anything above two.
You never got it one yet, right? You never got it.
It's like having a drink.
Unless you
It's like the one drink, two drink.
Interesting.
And when you've got two, refunnel it back into the system to check that what it's just generated. Would this be a logical solution you wouldn't have came up with but could still work? Because sometimes it diverges off the course of its correct course of action.
Cowboy's going above one.
But there you go. If you do want different types of areas, you can set them up at the plugin level. But the only input that I'm getting in this one is one parameter, and that parameter's name is very non-innovative in input itself. But yes, so you could have as many parameters as you're bringing into your prompt. So the other file that we have is the prompt, and I've been quite descriptive in my prompt. You might have all kinds of ways of designing your prompts. For me, in this prompt, this is an application that I'm developing a AI business analyst, which I have still not fixed the spelling of analyst, but it's a business analyst, and I'm telling it to do a few things. And I'm asking it to generate some information about this fictitious character or persona that I want to be in my application, so I don't have to pay lots of money for the business analyst in the room, for a business analyst maybe. But then what I am providing it here is the input. So that's the information that I was bringing from the config. And now you could have any. So in our application, we have quite a few in terms of what we bring in, into which plugin, for what task. So that depends on how you want to use it. And this JSON part is totally, or these elements is totally not needed as well. This is for if you want a structure or the way you want the structure to be. To try as much as possible for your tokens to be as less as possible, because they do cost, but try to be descriptive as well as much as possible. And that, as descriptive as you are, it does help with coherence in your responses. Okay, so any questions on that, actually?
Maybe you could show the code.
Sure, we can. It doesn't have a lot of code here, but we can have a look. I'll show you. So this is where we generate. So this is the generate controller, and all it's doing is out here. Generate service. So because it's just a web service, it's not a full application. It's just using your normal web service pattern template. And all it's doing here is it's creating a plan. So when we talked about the plan in that diagram, we talked about you can have as many plans as you want, right? So this is where it's creating a plan. And once it's created a plan, then it's passing in the plugins that it gets. So this is where it's generating the plan, and then it's invoking the plan. But when it's creating the plan, it's actually bringing in all the plugins that have been set in for the plan. And then the service is up and running. questions while I'm bringing my web page up? Finding the marks.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Sorry.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Might have been a few hours.
It's quite simplistic. If you actually, this one is not, but if you start with a sample, you might even have multiple plugins. So if you have multiple plugins, you can just bring multiple plugins the same way as well.
What Azure resource you're using behind the scene, not for running the API, but for doing the semantic kernel
Container app.
container app?
Yeah, for our application, this is just local.
But you're not using, if you want to run it on Azure, do you need any of the AI services?
So we are using so when we had a look at Azure OpenAI in the starting, so we are using Azure OpenAI local Azure instance. And in that we have, we've deployed a GPT model. It allows for multiple models. So pretty much all OpenAI models are available all the way up to 4. No, I think I have up to 3.5 turbo. So I think 4 is there too, but we are still using, I think, 3.5 turbo. So you just deploy it, and you can have multiple too. If you're not tied to just one instance, but we haven't needed any more than one.
So apart from the plugins, the decision making and how it wants to put the plans together and execute it is done by OpenAI service.
So the plugin itself, everything that you're doing in one plugin, that is happening in one prompt to OpenAI. How you bring it together will depend on your application and in the context that you're keeping.
Okay. The application is the orchestrator among all these services.
Yeah. Okay, this is better. So what we're doing in this one is, as we saw, we just, if you like to test creating a persona. In my last presentation, they asked me to create a monkey persona. So apart from that, feel free to ask anything. Yeah, they did. Or we can ask for, I can start with one that I don't know why, but stuck to me. Banker working in recoveries. He must be getting a lot of work these days. For a new web-based solution. If it doesn't work, we might have to restart the backend as well.
So how broad is this model? Could you go along and say a cat playing with a bullet string?
I'm not familiar with the phrase. Could you please Englishify it?
So a cat, as an example, you're generating a persona. So a banker working in recoveries with a new web-based solution. I basically just said a cat.
Oh, that's just
playing with
you
a bullet
provide.
string.
You could okay, sure. I thought that it was actually a slang phrase. So sorry for that.
That's all good.
But yeah, now let's try that. But what you're doing is, I didn't, up until that person asked for the monkey one, I didn't even think about that. I was coming up with very software application type kind of options. So it's really dependent on, what, try here first. what you are providing as an information. So if you provide a little bit more information, it has a little bit more to go with. If you provide a little less information, it would. But it's quite.
Like a cat laying in the sun, playing with a ball of string.
Let's try that cat. So we could start with cat if you want. If you go for just cat, you're just giving it less information, so it almost has to make up the rest of the information. So it's called the cat. Actually, it's because it was supposed to create a persona, it's created a veterinarian persona. That is not what we wanted.
No, but it's
That's probably because of the information in the task that we provided. As well. But if you did, I'm actually quite curious to see how it goes when we put the whole thing that you were saying.
cat laying in the sun.
Scheduling appointments with clients.
Was there another something to add to it?
No, it's just reading the response.
Ah,
As a veterinarian, she schedules appointments with clients with their cats, I guess.
freelance writer. It's completely changed. So that's kind of pretty much just, we're trying to do different things than what it's.
But the responses are really interesting because it's actually still applying the rules that you've gone along and specified and just come up with really something quite interesting.
And made the correlation between cat and veterinarian.
Yeah.
Was good. If you turn up the temperature, will the veterinarian send the cat into space?
I was going to go for Mars, but that's good. Let's close it up. We can try a normal one too. Yes, it's. Let's see if this one starts to work now.
I think it's having trouble with recoveries. It needs an eye.
Yes, misspelled.
Probably not.
It needs an eye after the R.
Okay, it doesn't understand recovery speed.
I'm just impressed about the cat lying in the sun now. It's created a.
I have to create one normal one. Come on. Okay.
Oh, there we go. That's cool.
So in terms of responses, you can really just go for whichever type of request or context you have for your application. Please.
I was just going to say, what if you do a banker in India? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to see that because I think it's been
In
the same.
Ireland.
It's been the same last name every time, I think, or very similar.
The first application that I did before, I would expect it to be smart enough to figure that out. But I tried to use it to create, my brother was having a baby and I tried to use it to create names for babies.
Big use case.
It did, and I would give it context like now, name in India, or we wanted a name that is good in India, good in New Zealand, and good in Australia. And
Rajesh.
there you go. A little bit more top priorities, because Indians probably like to do more work or more priorities. But I did, it's quite, when I did that example for generating names, it was very evident how, as soon as you change the context of the geographical location, it just picks it up. There used to be a sample, it might still be there. So there you go, Hans Muller. There was a sample previously that created pet names. And you would tell it what kind of animal and what kind of interest you have, and then it would come up with animal or pet names. So all kinds of interesting names for horses and Cool. This was my little demo. I am going to take you back to the presentation just for a little bit longer, and then I promise I'll let you go. It's been a little bit longer one. Okay. Because one of the questions, I actually put some of this after some questions that I got in terms of if you put your organization data or you're bringing your organization data, how do you do it securely? How do you import all the organization small tests, proof of concepts? Those are fine. You're putting finite information, and you know the people that you're testing it with. You know the purpose. But if you are actually creating a full-blown organization-wide LLM and hooking up all your information, or even if you're not doing that, even if you're just getting Microsoft Copilot and switching that on, and it has access to everything that M365 has access to, how do you make sure your organization is good from security perspective? I picked up this phrase from one of the talks or some documentation from Microsoft actually, that just as much needed. I know you guys are all Azure people, so you probably have been using what is the phrase for the security?
Just in time.
Just in time, zero trust.
Least privilege.
Sorry?
Least privilege.
Least privilege, there you go. All those terminologies. I think least privilege is probably the most aligned with just as much, and that's what they're going with. So if you have access to something, then you would have access to that in LLM as well. If you do not have access to the information where it is sitting at the moment at source, you will not have access to that in the LLM. And if it's designed properly, when I say designed properly, one of the patterns they're using is to pass your user context. So in M365 and Microsoft Copilot, they're using the user context. In your scenario, you might want to use user context for some information, most of the information, but you might want to do some actions or some basic work regardless as an app permissions as well. But the common pattern that we're saying is the user context, take the user context, but when you're doing the user context, the long, big problem that a lot of people, a lot of organizations, large ones especially, have still not gotten through is not all their information is, forget about even secured properly, not even classified properly. So you do not have that. So that's where I think the investment, it's a good time to start investing in that. I think Microsoft Purview is a good product and solution that they've been using for the permission management all the way up to the line level in the database and things like that. So that's probably a good place to start investing in. Another question I've been asked is around the bias side of things. And that's interesting because what kind of bias are we talking about? Are we talking about the bias that the product brings? Or are we talking about the bias that the product still ends up leaving? As compared to, if we take the example of, for example, a recruiter. You apply for a job, especially at the moment. I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a founder as well, and she advertised a position for no money, like a co-founder position of a company that almost has not even a product at the moment, just doing discussion, has an idea, doing discussions with customers at the moment, no product, no signed up customers or anything. She got close to 100 applications for no salary, just for equity, co-founder, CTO, close to 100 applications she got. So if you think about from and that's the kind of time we are in at the moment, but if you think from a recruiter's life's perspective, their work increased. They used to probably get 10 applications or 20 applications for one job. Now they're getting hundreds. If they're getting hundreds they're not going to have much time to go through an application. And they traditionally used to spend 6 seconds, but they probably do even less now. That's bias. That's bound to bring bias. This one person, lots of work, and applications good ones even don't get looked at. So if you were building, say, an application that takes all the applications in and then gives you, based on your criteria, based on the requirements, technical, non-technical, gives you, these are the best suited candidates, time saving, and you probably have less bias because instead of one person, you probably have a few hundred, maybe a few thousands people's point of view into it. And that's probably less bias, but it's still not zero bias because it's still based on certain people's input that an LLM, enterprise or non, that's been trained on. So we can't eliminate it, but the question of bias is actually almost helpful if you're using applications like that. Any comment, question on that? Or actually anything you guys are planning to do? I know we had about 6 or 7 in the question that people are planning to build with it for their organization.
Preferential bias is implicitly extremely dangerous in that, given your example, so let's say a recruiter advertises the job and says, give me similar people to that have been successful in the past. So you're looking at an engineering job, straight away, females will probably be lower down the list if they make it, because statistically they don't feature as heavily, regardless of your skill set. And then also in geographically, again, you would be getting, because of your implicit bias, your smaller ethnic groups will be less representative, so you'd end up in Australia with predominantly Caucasian males, 30 to 40.
So true. Absolutely.
So you really need to protect or be aware of, because it'll be the same risks that have came in with facial recognition, where again they were largely trained on Caucasian data sets.
I liked one of those systems. When I did my facial scan, it told me that I'm 18 or 20.
Yeah.
But you're right, you're spot on. And that's where I think it's very important. I don't know if I have a slide here on that, but if you're building something that is going to be customer facing or is going to be used by other people for whatever scenario, please do go read the responsible AI principles. We use them, we prioritize them. Privacy, security, one of the couple of high level things, but Microsoft has issued 10 or more responsible AI principles. So has Australian government in association with CSIRO. Please look into them, and if you're planning to develop something, and do look into that. And when you do, you will automatically find things that you would do. One of the examples for us is, one of the things we do in our application is we send tips to people. And we almost debated for days on that, because half the team wanted to automatically generate them and send tips, and the half the team was, no, we can't do that. We can't send, what the terminology was, unsolicited advice to people, which is not being vetted. So the tips that we send, even though they are generated by information, we go through a fair bit of multiple individual vetting. Multiple human vetting before we allow those tips to go to people. So in your scenario, it might be completely different, but whatever it is, common sense, and some of these guidelines are very helpful to follow. Okay, that was it. That was me. Thank you very much for today.
Tina, that was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
You having been presented here already, you already know how much we appreciate our speakers and the work that they
I
do.
I know how much wine I get. Thank you, Dan, very much. Thanks for having me again. I loved it.
That's okay. Yeah, thank
Cool.
you. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. And again, apologies for some of the hiccups tonight with the, especially to those people online who had to wait, and didn't even get the pizza when it arrived. So anyway, couple of things. We are on for next month. I can't remember actually who's.
I can't remember.
I
I'm
can't
sorry.
remember. We are booked up.
We do have next month. We do have December as well.
That's right. Absolutely. And just for just so you know, when with the meetup site, when you RSVP, if you're coming live, then RSVP. If you're intending to join by the Teams link, don't, because obviously I'm gonna base the pizza order based on the numbers that I think are coming live, and there's no way to really distinguish the two when you're online in the meetup. So that would help just a bit if you can do that.
You can use the Forms app.
Yep. Forms like
Use it for that. Okay, and the last thing is that if you brought a glass in or a beer bottle or anything, just bring it outside. It would be great. That would really help us. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a
Thank you.